Hello and welcome to another video on the FPL News channel. This is a press conference recap for Fantasy Premier League ahead of the Gameweek 14 deadline, which is 11 a.m. UK Ireland time on Saturday morning. So the big news that everybody was hoping to find out today was from Man City and Erling Haaland, who's got a foot injury. Unfortunately, Guardiola gave up pretty much nothing on him. Just that he's going to be assessed, that he was going to see if he trains or not, basically, this afternoon after his press conference. Which is obviously a pain in the neck for the millions of us who own Haaland and plan on captaining him for Gameweek 14. But there's two things that could work in our favour. One is training pictures. At the time of recording, it's about 6:20 now, Irish time. There hasn't been any training pictures, but they could arrive later on this evening or tomorrow morning. I think if I saw, training pictures from today and Haaland's in them, I'd be pretty confident that he'd play then. Obviously, like a video would be even better. A training video would be better than a picture because, it's hard to tell exactly what they're doing from a picture. But, if he's in what looks like team training, or obviously if he's pictured with other players and stuff like that, I think I'd be happy enough to know that he starts then, but we may or may not get those, unfortunately. And the second thing is that because Man City playing the early kickoff, there's a possibility of early team news pre-deadline, pre-11 a.m. tomorrow morning. So if you're able, stay online for the half an hour before deadline. There might be something. As I said last week, you have to be extremely careful with these things because there's people that just want to put out fake team news and fake leaks and all that kind of crack. I will share anything that I think is legit, but yeah, be careful. On captaining Haaland or not, at the moment I still have it on him, and I think I'm going to leave it on him. Like right now, with what we know, it's extremely hard to know if he plays or not, to be fair. And there is a risk of cameo, definitely. But I think there's a greater chance that he either plays or does not play at all. And yeah, I guess I'm willing to take that risk. Because obviously Haaland, even if he was only got 30 minutes, if he does end up being a sub, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So personally, I'm leaving it on him, and with current info, that's the plan, and hopefully we will get either something from Man City training or perhaps the early team news, and that would give us a better indication. But for now, I think I'd be happy enough to just captain him, have a good think about your vice captain. And I guess don't be surprised if he doesn't show at all, but that remains to be seen. So otherwise from Pep, he can be extremely hard to understand in his pressers. Obviously it just happens when people aren't native English speakers or whatever, and he may or may not be just trying to obfuscate as well. But he is quite difficult to understand. He was asked about the availability of others. Kind of Cancelo was mentioned in the question, and then Pep started talking, and he seemed to suggest the rest of the players, the ones who don't have long-term injuries, trained yesterday. To me, it seems like he's not including Haaland in that group, but that's definitely not a definite. And again, we have no video or picture evidence from Man City training from Thursday. And even more annoyingly, there was no follow-up questions as to, did Haaland train Thursday? What have the doctors said about him? What has your medical staff said? Do they expect him to train on Friday? Lots of different things that he could have been poked and prodded with, and he probably would have given up some more information. But that did not happen. So we just have to go on what we got. So I guess Cancelo will be fine. He had a fever midweek. They played Tuesday in the Champions League, and he still managed to play 45 minutes. So I'd imagine he'll be grand. Doubt there'll be any bother. And Pep was also quoted during the week, not today, but post the Champions League game, about how he's going to, use players that haven't got many minutes in the last group game, the Champions League, and in the cup game, and basically it's going to be first team as much as you can predict it for Pep in the Premier League. So obviously we got the surprise Foden benching last week, which can happen any week, to be fair, with any of them. But at least they basically, he's no other games besides the 3 Premier League games to actually need players such as Haaland, Cancelo, De Bruyne, Foden. He does not need to play them in the midweek games anymore up to the World Cup. So that's a positive, I guess, in terms of picking Man City players in FPL. He also said that Kyle Walker and Calvin Phillips, who are those long-term injured players, that they're not going to play for City before the World Cup. He didn't say they're out of the World Cup, but he did say that they're not going to be lining out for City. I guess those are 2 separate things now, even though the timings are very, very close, and hard for players who played no minutes for a while, or in Phillips's case at all, to suddenly be fit for the World Cup. But I'm sure there'll be lots of mad things happening. Players desperate to go and all that kind of thing. But yeah, so those 2 are sidelined. And he did tell us that Ederson would start, so that was sound. Thanks, Pep. He also got asked about Alvarez, naturally enough. Pep said that Alvarez is the first choice to replace Haaland if the Norwegian is injured. To me, he spoke about it generally, as opposed to saying definitively that's what's going to happen tomorrow. He sort of spoke in general terms. If Haaland is missing, it could be tomorrow, it could be in 5 months' time. Alvarez is the choice to replace him. Of course, that doesn't mean that he'll do something different or use a false 9 here and there, but it does sound as though if Haaland is out tomorrow, it'll be Alvarez in the lineup. And then in future, you'd expect that to happen too, because that's what he's saying. But he's obviously always got the option of using one of the midfielders in the center of the attack in a different sort of setup. So yeah, that's everything on Man City. All of the quotes are in my thread, which is linked below. So we'll move on to Liverpool. Thiago Alcantara is back. That would generally be regarded as pretty good news for Liverpool's attacking prospects. Thiago's range of passing, ability to break lines, create chances, all that kind of, involvement in attacking play. Obviously, he himself isn't an FPL option, but he does generally have a pretty good effect on Liverpool's attacking numbers. So obviously, or hopefully, I suppose, rather than obviously, it should be good for Salah owners in that sense. Kanate is building up his fitness, so it doesn't sound like he's ready to start at all, but might get some minutes. Henderson's a doubt. Matip and Kate are both out. And Klopp also spoke of using different systems or formations in terms of like not being wedded to one that he likes or that he has used, that being the 4-3-3 that we've kind of come to expect from Liverpool. He's obviously moved away from that recently, and it sounds like he will continue to use a different formation. He didn't say exactly which one. I think they played a diamond sort of setup against Ajax in the Champions League, and he's spoken about what they have been doing as a 4-2-2. Excuse me, 4-4-2. Getting confused with Hasenhuttl. A lot of people would probably see it as 4-2-3-1, but yeah, I suppose it's not a huge amount of difference, and probably a lot of it is to do with defending as well. But yeah, what does it mean for Salah? It's very hard to know. This diamond idea would obviously be good because you can just play Firmino as the number 10 and therefore have Salah up front, which is what we want, I guess, as owners. I happen to own him. Lots of people do, obviously. I suppose the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-4-2 not so hot because you need wingers in that, and Salah ends up on the right in either of those two formations realistically. But it's not exactly clear which one he'll use. I don't doubt that it would depend on the opponent too, and naturally enough, it's not something he's going to reveal. But yeah, it's just more so interesting than anything else. It'll be interesting to see how he lines them out. Again, hopefully Salah will be playing more centrally, but guess we'll have to wait and see. Okay, on to West Ham. Jared Bowen is a doubt with an ankle injury. It was revealed last night. He obviously wasn't part of their Conference League squad. Moyes said that he was running on the grass today, but they need to see if he can twist and turn and lots of other things. So I'd say he's a fairly decent doubt to play. Obviously with Moyes, it's hard to know. But I mean, if he doesn't train, it's unlikely he'll play, but obviously their game is Sunday, so they have an extra day. I definitely wouldn't be banking on him being in the lineup anyway. But yeah, that's Bowen. So yeah, that's why he's flagged. And again, I suppose on the training pictures thing, if you really need Bowen to play and you want to try and find out, I guess, West Ham training pictures from today might tell a story or not. And otherwise for West Ham, Paqueta is out. And Aguerd made his debut in the Conference League, but Moyes has said that he's not really ready to play Premier League yet. So he'll probably get more minutes next week in that competition, and we'll see from there. I don't think he's going to upset the apple cart in defence there too much before the World Cup. I'd say that they're basically hoping he'll go to the World Cup and then from playing games there, come back fit and be ready to use him then from Gameweek 17. For Chelsea, Koulibaly's out and Kovacic is fine. Spurs, Richarlison and Kulusevski remain out. Romero is a doubt. Conte said they took a big risk playing in the Champions League, and he also spoke about how they have now a big Champions League game coming up on Tuesday again, so they have to make the best decision with that in mind. So yeah, trying to predict, say the wing backs for Spurs is what people want to know. It's extremely hard to know who Conte is going to play and not play there. He's obviously got the Champions League on the mind, and he's just got lots of options in that area. So it's kind of pick a name out of a hat or whatever sort of thing. Personally, I have Doherty. Just going to start him because I suppose my other defender to start would be Gehi. So I'm happy enough to take the risk that if Doherty does start, he could get some form of decent points return, hopefully. So yeah, I suppose Perisic is the other one that people own. If I was in that situation, it obviously depends who you're benching instead of him. But if you've got a sort of a low ceiling defender or defenders that you're benching so that you can play a Spurs wingback that may or may not play, I think that's probably worth it. But it will depend on your team structure. And yeah, I suppose it might be worth looking at Paul O'Keefe's prediction, even though it is a prediction, not an insider knowledge thing. But I think anybody would probably struggle to tell you without ITK sort of stuff who's going to play a wing back for Spurs against Bournemouth. Right, so Fulham, Kenny Tete is back in the squad. Silva said he had no other new issues or whatever. As far as I know, Mitrovic is still managing this foot injury, but he's in training. And I don't think there's anything to worry about. I'd say he plays. There's obviously the risk that he gets taken off, depending on game state and foot state for him. But yeah, I think he's a good bet to start with the information we have. So for Man United, Ten Hag hopes Martial would play before the World Cup, but striker's not back in team training, and Rafael Varane is out until after the World Cup. Ten Hag's presser was embargoed from last night, so he actually didn't speak today, but the news is obviously only being published today. For Brentford, Norgard's back in training, but this weekend probably too soon, and Lewis Potter is going to be back in the squad. For Nottingham Forest, they've no new injury worries. Lewis O'Brien and Renan Lodi are back in training. Lodi came off the bench in 13. His situation is interesting because obviously Nico Williams has been playing at left back. Cooper said that Lodi needed this week of training, and that he'd kind of see how Lodi and O'Brien are at the weekend or whatever. So I suppose just want to monitor to see if I guess nobody's going to be playing Nico away to Arsenal, but people may or may not need him for the last 2 game weeks. So yeah, it'll just be interesting to see whether or not Lodi is fully fit by then. So for Newcastle, St. Maximin's close to returning. But as Howe has said previously, not today, but previously, they have to be extremely careful with him because of the recurring hamstring injury. So possibly might get some minutes off the bench, or maybe starts and comes off early, something like that. But yeah, he's in the frame anyway. Isaac remains out. That was known already until after the World Cup, and he said they had bumps and bruises after having 3 games in a week. So yeah, could be some unexpected lineup things happening, but he didn't give any more information than that. For Aston Villa, Luca Dean's back available. If anyone would like a well-known FPL troll. Boubacar Kamara is getting closer to a return, but won't be ready for the weekend. And Aaron Danks, who's the interim manager, said that they have knocks and niggles otherwise, which is sort of the exact same as Howe saying that Newcastle have bumps and bruises. So yeah, one to keep an eye on as well, Aston Villa. For Wolves, Diego Costa has a knock, but he trained today, being Friday. Toddy Gomez, the centre half, he could return next week, and there is no timescale for Raul Jimenez's injury or comeback from injury. Davis hopes that he'll play at the World Cup, but it doesn't sound like we're going to see him in Premier League action before that, really. That's the story with him. For Brighton, there's doubts over Lamptey and Veltman. Lallana's fine and Matoma is now available. Crystal Palace have no fresh injury worries. So that's all of the pressers that happened on Friday. On to Thursday, for Bournemouth, Solanke recovered well from his issue in Gameweek 13, so he could play this weekend. I own Solanke, excuse me. I'm guessing, like me, a lot of people will probably be benching him this weekend anyway, so it's pretty decent news. It sounds like he'll definitely be fit for 15 and 16, once he doesn't get another whack or whatever, but he might even play this weekend, so good news if you're holding on to Solanke, I guess. Neto, the goalkeeper, is out and he's unlikely to be seen before the World Cup, so Mark Travers is going to deputise, and Lloyd Kelly remains out. For Leeds, there's injury doubts over Sinistera, Rodrigo, Liam Cooper, Joe Gelhardt and Tyler Adams. No word on the type of injuries any of those players have or the severity. Adams missed out last weekend with injury, and the other four have obviously picked up issues in the last week sometime. So a lot of flags for Leeds. For Southampton, Romeo Lavia is back in training, but Hasnell needs to go ahead from the medical team to put the midfielder in his squad. Bella Kotchap could return to training next week, and Walker Peters out with a hamstring injury and he's unlikely to be seen before the World Cup. Everton, Nathan Patterson is in the squad for the weekend, so he's back available, so he's going to be competing with Seamus Coleman. Again, another interesting one, Patterson, from a budget point of view. Lampard also praised Coleman for how he dealt with Zaha last weekend, and to me it sounds like it'd probably be hard for Patterson to come immediately straight back in, but I guess we'll see what happens this weekend and go from there. But I don't doubt that Patterson will be a good option from Gameweek 17 at least, all things being equal. Lampard also spoke about Calvert-Lewin showing his fitness levels in Gameweek 13. Personally, I was a bit surprised he started 2 games in quick succession. His injury record's obviously quite poor. Personally, I would be wary of investing in him over the next 3 game weeks. I'd definitely be wicked wary of doing it this weekend. He's also a bit of an awkward price at 7.9, so a lot's going to depend on what you got in the bank or who you'd be selling to buy him. Does have excellent fixtures though. I can see why people are interested. I guess I'd be a lot more keen on him if he got 90 minutes this weekend rather than 70 something, and kind of go from there. So definitely keep his injury proneness in mind if you are investing in Calvert-Lewin. For Leicester, Ndidi's back in training and Johnny Evans is going to be monitored, so it doesn't sound like he's going to make it again. He kind of said his fitness will be monitored over the next 3 games they've left before the World Cup or whatever, so he's going to be a doubt. So that's all of the press conferences that have happened so far. Well, actually, technically, there is one more that has happened, which is Arsenal, but it's yet to be published. So Mikel Arteta did his pre-Forest press conference in the aftermath of Arsenal's loss to PSV. So last night, on Thursday night, he did it. But it is embargoed. And because Arsenal don't play till Sunday, it's possible that said press conference won't be made publicly available until after the deadline, which is obviously annoying for FPL players. At the time of recording, it hasn't been published. If it is, I will tweet it. So, I suppose keep an eye on my Twitter account if you really need Arsenal updates or whatever. there was a suggestion that Gabriel, the centre half, was limping down the tunnel after the game, but Arteta did do like a briefing about right after the game, and he didn't get asked about it. He didn't say anything about it, naturally enough. So I guess there might be a minor concern over him, but yeah, very hard to know. And otherwise, there wasn't anything from the game, so yeah, we will get Arsenal news. It just may or may not come before deadline. I'll tweet it out one way or the other, but yeah, hopefully we might get it sooner rather than later. But if you're wondering why nothing has come out about Arsenal, that is the reason. So that's all 20 clubs covered. Thanks for joining me for this video, and I will talk to you again soon.